right, so my first weird number ones video seemed to go over pretty well, so I decided to do a part 2. And I think I've got a pretty eclectic mix here. I'd say the first 2 acts are really unusual due to the artists themselves. These are not the type of people that you expect to see topping the pop charts. This will become apparent as we get into it. Meanwhile, the last 2 entries are from multi-platinum mega acts that we all know well and have known for decades. So for these, the novelty lies not in the artists, but in the songs themselves, which are structured very unusually compared to the standard pop fare. So that's about it by way of introduction. Let's get into it. In my first video on this subject, I covered a great little tune known in the US as Sukiyaki, sung by Q Sakamoto entirely in Japanese. Now that song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in June of 1963. Obviously a highly unusual event for a foreign language song to hit number 1 in the US. But there must have been something in the air around that time that gave Americans a taste for foreign music, because a mere 6 months later, in December of '63, the number 1 spot was held by a song called Dominique, a song about, get this, Saint Dominic, the founder of the Dominican order, sung in French by a nun of that order, birth name Jeanne de Caire, performing in France as Sœur Souie, which translates in English to Sister Smile, and billed in America as the Singing Nun. Apologies for the horrific French pronunciations. At any rate, this is clearly not the type of subject matter or artist that you would expect to top the pop charts, but there it is. This thing was number 1 not only in the US, but also Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It was top 10 in 11 countries altogether. And it also won a Grammy for Best Gospel or Other Religious Recording in 1964. And here's another little interesting bit of trivia. Dominique was the second to last number 1 prior to the British invasion. One wonders if it would have made it to number 1 had it come out after that time. Interesting to speculate. The lyrics are quite straightforward, just chronicling the life of Saint Dominic and his achievements. For instance, here's the English translation of the first couple of verses. Dominique went along very simply, a traveler poor in singing. On every road, in every place, he only talks about the good Lord. At a time when John Lackland was the King of England, Dominique, our father, fought against the heretics, and so on. This really has the feel of an amateur guitarist just sitting around the campfire. Quirky little brush drum on the right hand. She has a very sweet voice, right? It's a 1-4-5 progression in G. I love that. One of her sisters joining in now. That's so cool. They were singing in unison and then a little bit of harmony creeps in. Now in a minute there's going to be a modulation. We're going to change to A. And here comes some more nuns. So now it's going to be A, D, and E, 1, 4, 5, and A. By the way, that clip we just saw was taken from a performance on the Ed Sullivan Show. I decided to use that because obviously it allows us to see the ladies as well as hear them. Okay, now here's the bummer part of the whole story. Sadly, following the success of this song, things didn't go too well for Jeanne. She left her convent in 1966. She swore to the end that she was forced out. There were money problems, the usual slimy music business stuff. Most of the money from her recordings went to her producer and record label. Her career floundered. There were issues with back taxes that were owed. And finally, in 1985, at the age of 51, both she and her life partner, Annie Pesce, committed suicide through a combination of alcohol and barbiturates. Truly a tragic ending to the story.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret.
So, from singing nuns to a crooning Green Beret combat medic, the 1960s certainly were interesting times musically. The Ballad of the Green Berets reached number 1 in 1966, a spot it would hold for 5 weeks. It was also named by Billboard magazine as the most successful song of 1966, and it was a crossover hit, reaching number 1 on the easy listening chart and number 2 on the country chart. Just crazy. The song was sung by Barry Sadler, who was, as mentioned, an actual soldier, and he co-wrote it with a guy called Robin Moore, an author who had written a book about the Green Berets and helped Sadler with the lyrics. Apparently, he also helped Sadler make a demo and score his record deal with RCA. I think when most of us think of pop music in the mid-1960s, we tend to think of rock and roll, the Beatles, the Stones, psychedelia just starting to emerge. And if a song dealt with the military at all, it was generally in a negative way, perhaps protesting the Vietnam War, which is what makes it all the more amazing that this song, which paints the military in a positive light, would be such a smash hit. I think it's important to note that Sadler is not advocating for the Vietnam War here or any war. The lyrics are really more about recognizing bravery and humanizing the Green Berets. For example, in the final 2 verses, we get, "Back at home, a young wife waits. Her Green Beret has met his fate. He has died for those oppressed, leaving her his last request. Put silver wings on my son's chest. Make him one of America's best. He'll be a man they'll test one day. Have him win the Green Beret." And by the way, since I'm well aware of how stupid YouTube comment sections can sometimes get, just want to say, if anybody wants to come into the comments and espouse their political views based on this video, that's fine, knock yourself out. But just know that I don't do politics on this channel. So if anybody wants to read anything into this segment and gets the idea that I'm somehow espousing my views here on the Vietnam War or the military in general or anything at all, that is absolutely not the case. I'm just doing a little segment on a song that was a surprise hit back in 1966. Like Dominique, this song is not complex musically. It's another 1-4-5 chord progression, the most common chord progression in popular music. This time we're in the key of C, so that's C, F, and G7. Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret. Obviously, the arrangement here is quite sparse. Throughout much of the tune, the most prominent thing is that insistent and very militaristic sounding snare drum. There is a backing chorus And later in the song, a little horn section comes in. As far as I can tell, the musicians who played on this remain uncredited to this day. If anyone has any information on that, please let me know in the comments.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality.
As mentioned in my intro, Queen is, of course, a massive international act. Some of you might be out there saying, what's so weird about Queen having a number one? And there's absolutely nothing weird about Queen having a number one. Besides this song, they had Crazy Little Thing Called Love, Another One Bites the Dust, Under Pressure, of course, a collaboration with David Bowie, and Innuendo. What's weird about this one is not the band that made it, but the song itself. This song has become so iconic that I think we all tend to take it for granted. Like, yeah, of course that was a big hit. It's so compelling. But I tell you what, I defy anyone to name another number one song that is even remotely like this in terms of structure or sound. Bottom line, it was a very bold move to put this out as the lead single of an album. So what makes this song so weird? Let me count the ways. First of all, it's long. It's a 6-minute suite which begins with an a cappella vocal intro. That's unusual in itself. I just did a video on great a cappella vocal intros in rock and pop, and I can tell you there really aren't a whole lot of them when you think about it. This one was created by multi-tracking Freddie Mercury's voice endless times to achieve that amazing effect. Another highly unusual element, Bohemian Rhapsody has no refraining chorus. Usually that would be the kiss of death for a song that you want to make it to the top of the charts. Even take a song like Hotel California, for example. It's also very lengthy and has somewhat of an unusual structure. But even there, at least they have that chorus that they keep returning to, something to latch on to. Welcome to the Hotel California. Bohemian Rhapsody does not have that. It's just one interesting part sort of stacked on top of another. Nothing ever really repeats. Mercury admitted that the song was pieced together from 3 different song fragments he had laying around. Also note that the song's title, Bohemian Rhapsody, is never once uttered during the song's 6 minutes. Next we have what I guess you could call the ballad section. This is probably the most conventional part, and to be fair, I guess we do get a repeat here. We get 2 consecutive verses. The one that starts, Mama just killed a man, and then the second starting with, Too late, my time has come. Then we get the opera section, what Freddie called the mock opera section. I know we've all heard it 1,000 times before, but let's just listen again and marvel in the strangeness of it all. How many rock songs drop words like Scaramouche, Bishmillah, and Beelzebub in the lyrics?
I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening me.
Roger Taylor, of course, on the crazy high parts.
I'm just a poor boy, nobody loves me. He's just a poor boy from a poor family, sparing his life from this monstrosity.
Imagine being one of the execs at EMI when the band said, yeah, we want this to be our first single.
No, we will not let you go. Let him go. Bismillah. We will not let you go. Let him go. Bismillah. We will not let you go. Let me go. We'll not let you go. Let me go. We'll not let you go. Let me go. Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia. Mamma mia, let me go. Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me. For me. For me.
And that right there, I think, is a great example of why this song succeeded against all odds. just a clinic in dynamics. That rockin' part there, coming after what we've heard for the first several minutes, just hits so unbelievably hard. It was a brilliant move to use that bit for the headbanging scene in the car in Wayne's World. And if I had to sum up this segment, I think I would say that there are really two main paths that an artist can take to get to the top of the charts. The first is sound vaguely like everything else that's going on at that moment. Follow the proven formula. Verse, chorus, catchy hook. Keep it around 3 to 3.5 minutes. This is overwhelmingly what we get in popular music. The other path, which is much riskier, but I think ultimately much more rewarding, is forget about whatever the current thing is and do something that is so out there, yet so fresh and exciting and well executed that it just becomes undeniable. And that's absolutely what Queen was able to pull off with Bohemian Rhapsody. What we've just heard there is Exhibit A as to why Prince's When Doves Cry was a very unusual number one. How many number one pop hits start out with a face-melting guitar solo, particularly artists like Prince who are heavily associated with funk and R&B. This wouldn't have been quite as strange if this was a Van Halen record, but coming from Prince, it was kind of shocking, especially in a time when many people didn't realize how well Prince could play guitar as they do today. Oh, and the fact that he paired said guitar solo with an insistent, guttural, vaguely erotic sounding vocal loop was also an interesting call, but it works perfectly. Now, regarding the solo itself, for years I thought it was a 12-string guitar. It really has that sound. Come to find out, Prince used a 6-string, but played it through a Boss OC2 octave divider. That makes sense. That would absolutely give a kind of 12-string effect. Apparently, there's a little bit of flange on there too. That solo really reminds me of some of the things Roger McGuinn did on 8 Miles High. Think about it. 8 Miles High, of course, was played on an actual 12-string though. Prince's solo is, I think, based primarily on a B Phrygian scale. Phrygian mode has a flat 2, a flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7, which explains the exotic effect we get here. Phrygian tends to sound very sort of Spanish. No octave or flange effect there, but I think you get the general idea. All of which brings us to what is undoubtedly the weirdest part of this song. And I'm going to be really curious to know how many of you ever noticed this. Be honest and let me know in the comments. And that's the fact that this song has literally no bass guitar. Now, I don't know how many number one pop hits over the years have not had bass guitar, but I gotta believe it's a pretty small number. Again, especially for an artist that is known as a R&B/funk act. That's really kind of unthinkable. And it just occurred to me I should probably clarify something here. In the keyboard-heavy 80s, there was probably a number of very popular songs that didn't use bass guitar necessarily, but generally there was bass coming from somewhere, usually a synth bass. When Doves Cry is unique in that there is no bass coming from any instrument anywhere. I'm embarrassed to admit, for many years, I never really thought about the lack of bass. Then one time I was reading an article that related a story in which Prince met Miles Davis for the first time, and Davis immediately asked him why he had not written a bass line for When Doves Cry, and the little light bulb in my head went off. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, I never thought about it. I just always love the song. It's one of my favorite Prince songs. But leave it to a musical genius like Miles Davis to just hone in on that immediately. Apparently, Prince responded with something like, well, it's implied, it's really there anyway. And I think I understand what he's talking about there. By the way, Prince really did write a bass line and recorded a bass line, but then went through this gradual process of sort of de-producing the song into the stark version we hear today. And I think that was wise. There it is, just Prince's voice and a Lynn LM1 drum machine. But what else do you need? It's starkly beautiful. Here comes one of my favorite Prince lines of all time. So good. Now, other artists might have put a bass in here where the keyboard, the synth enters. Not Prince. It's a beautiful exercise in restraint. Like Bohemian Rhapsody, this one is also unusually long. In fact, they both clock in right around 6 minutes. However, in this case, there was a very popular radio edit which essentially just chopped off more or less the second half of the song. So yeah, the edit basically just faded out right around here, just as this guitar solo was starting. So a second guitar solo, kind of weird. And it's quite a long one. Still using that same cool octave effect. This solo much more subdued than the opening. Prince being Prince there, with his primal screaming. And again, none of this is exactly standard pop fare. But we got more coming up here in a moment, more surprises. What's this exactly? So just when you thought Prince couldn't incorporate any more disparate styles into one song, he throws in this very Baroque sounding synth solo. And an interesting piece of trivia on that, apparently it was just a little bit too speedy for Prince to play in real time, so he recorded it at a slowed down speed and then sped it up later to match the tempo of the song. And that's significant because that really changes the tone of the instrument. And finally, we haven't talked about the lyrics yet, but I think there's some interesting stuff going on here too. Now, obviously, much of it is your typical sexy, steamy Prince stuff. Dig If You Will, the picture of you and I engaged in a kiss, the sweat of your body covers me, and on and on. But then as it leads into the chorus, we get, maybe you're just too demanding, maybe I'm just like my father, too bold, maybe you're just like my mother, she's never satisfied. And even when I was a teenager, which I was when this song first came out, I always thought that section was quite emotionally advanced, I guess you could say, when compared to the usual pop song stuff. All right, so that's it for now. As usual, let me know what you all think of these songs, and feel free to suggest other songs that you think are kind of unusual number ones. Please consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, always helpful. Go to the description of this video if you'd like to explore options for making a financial contribution in any amount. You can do PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, all the usual stuff. All right. See you next time.